Yes, well, to start us, I'm Sam McKenzie, Tennessee House 15th District, SAM-MC-KENZIE, Chairman of the Black Caucus. Good morning, everyone. This is another really terribly unfortunate press conference that we're holding now. The world saw what happened yesterday. We had three of our members, a Democratic Party, inappropriately indicted. And I'm glad for my homegirl, my Knox County partner, Gloria Johnson, the fact that she was not convicted, because this was a kangaroo court, convicted of her charges. But the optics, the world saw the optics. I don't have to say a word about the fact that our two young African-American brothers were unfairly prosecuted, information, evidence introduced inappropriately, but they handled themselves like true champions. They answered every question. Every person that interrogated them were lawyers on the other side. To me, it's a horrific indictment on the Tennessee GOP, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves. And the fact that they continue to keep their foot on the accelerator when they knew the world was watching really just shows what this Republican Party has sunk to. New lows. I'm from East Tennessee. We need more Howard Baker type Republicans that says the guy on the other side just might be right. We're right this time. They're wrong. These two men, I have every confidence that their counties and metropolitan areas are going to send them back. They're going to bring them back here. And my charge to this establishment is to seat them immediately. The people voted for them, and they need to take their rightful positions back. I'll now turn it over to Jesse Chisholm, my vice chair.
Jesse Chisholm, JESSECHISM, Vice Chair of the Tennessee Black Caucus of State Legislators. Yesterday, it looked like a Jim Crow era trial, where we saw two black men fighting for their careers, fighting for their reputations, fighting for their political lives. The scene was so disheartening as we were walking, specifically when we were walking Representative Jones out of the chamber. Many of us were fighting back tears. And when we went back into the chamber, many of our tears broke. And it was a shame to see some of the smirks, some of the smiles that some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle had as they saw our tears. So we have to have our members back. We have to have more members so that we can fight this kind of thing. So yesterday was a shame, and the world saw it, and anybody on that side of the aisle that voted to remove our members should be ashamed of themselves. Thank you.
Well, my name is Ramesh Akbari, R-A-U-M-E-S-H. Last name is spelled A-K-B-A-R-I. I'm the Senate Minority Leader. And myself and several of my colleagues witnessed what happened yesterday on the Tennessee House of Representatives floor. I said to some of my colleagues, this is the greatest miscarriage of justice on this floor since African American members were first seated after Reconstruction and then after in the Jim Crow era. We all saw what happened yesterday. Two extremely intelligent, eloquent, community-centered black men were removed from the House of Representatives. That is not something that should be taken lightly. For 5 seconds of disruption before the speaker called for recess, these members were expelled. And they literally had to fight on that floor for their political health and for their careers. You know, my colleagues across the aisle, they know this is wrong. The text messages I've received, the private moments that they have said, you know, this is not what we should be doing. Yet they did it. The definition of courage is the ability to do what's right, even when it's hard. And there was no courage yesterday from my colleagues across the aisle. There was no willingness to compromise. And the world is watching Tennessee. And yet again, they're watching it for the wrong reasons. Quite frankly, I'm exhausted. This legislative session has been about, if you don't like what someone is doing, you don't like how they're being run, you take over them, you get rid of them, or in this case, you expel them. And so I am happy that we have representative government in our counties and in our cities where they will more than likely reappoint these young men so that they can take the place that their voters elected them to be in. Justin Pearson steps into the shadows of our late colleague, Representative Barbara Cooper. She was born in 1929 and fought her entire life so that things like what happened to Justin yesterday did not happen. I urge my colleagues to look past their own feelings and think about the institution and what it means to expel members. And when they are reappointed, I urge them to not pull any sort of shenanigans and let these young men be seated. Because at the end of the day, this is not our house. This is the people's house. We are elected by the people to do the people's will. And when you stop people who have been elected by the people from doing their will, that is when democracy dies. Thank you.
My name is Representative Vincent Dixie, and it's Vincent, last name Dixie, D as in David, IXIE, and I represent District 54. And first, I'll just say welcome to Tennessee, where there's a pattern of racism that has permeated these halls that we walk through that we're supposed to make laws for everyone here in Tennessee. A couple of years ago, I was the chairman of the House Democratic Caucus. And the attitude toward me and cooperation that I received, or lack of cooperation I received from working with the leadership on the other side, was terrible. There was no working relationship, and my job was to hold him accountable. And I don't think he's ever had a black man stand up to him as his equal. And it showed. And you can go back and look at the Twitter conversations, and I simply said your policies are racist 2 years ago. He took it personal. And all I said was a hit dog will holler. And look where we are today. So I'm glad that we're here today. I look at this as an opportunity for us to move forward. The world is watching. And what are we going to do now? Is it going to be business as usual? Well, it happened to two black men. Oh, well, let's move on. Or are we going to actually do something about it? Are we going to step up? Is this what Tennessee is? Where if you have the power, you put your thumb on the scale to keep the opposite side down? Is that what we are reduced to nowadays? And I want people to understand that it's a top-down decision. So I want you to look at the leadership in the Republican Party here in the legislature, especially in the House. Cameron Sexton, William Lambert. Jeremy Faison, and Farmer. They introduced the idea of what goes on. They control everything that goes on in those hallways, in the General Assembly. And it's a top-down approach. They can control the atmosphere, the environment, the behavior that goes on. The rank and file members take their cues from the top. Everybody's watching the leadership now. What are they going to do to make this right? Or can they make it right? Is it in their heart? So I want to say thank you for coming, and I'll turn it back over to Representative Sam McKenzie.
You know, I'm folks that don't know, I'm a physicist by training, and I keep telling folks this: force is the time rate of change of momentum. The momentum is changing. That pendulum has shifted due to their own actions, but they really couldn't help themselves. That's the shameful part of it. So here we go. What I'm doing, I'm asking folks who are mad to stay mad. This was not about that kangaroo court that happened yesterday. This was about those 3 young children and those 3 guardians, those 3 adults that whose lives were just taken away senselessly with weapons of mass destruction. I tell folks to keep hanging on the Second Amendment. If they passed it back then, it would be the right to bear cannons. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about arms. We're talking about the most deadly type of weapons. Even when they created that amendment, they were not talking about the most deadly type of militaristic type of weapons. So let's get back to the point and the purpose of why we were here. We need common sense. Common sense. Gun laws. We need background checks. We need to say, if somebody says you got some issues and it's proven, you need to have those guns taken away. So let's focus on that. But let's get to the big picture of why our 3 colleagues were, for 5 seconds during our session, took the well. So at this point, I'll take any questions, or we'll take any questions.
Last night, the House Public Caucus put out a statement to the media where they said not only did Representative Pearson and Jones break House rules, they broke the law. To my knowledge, the first time that is actually implemented. Do you all feel that that's an escalation of concerns that even former representatives now seem to be seated or reelected in the Republican caucus will escalate in other ways?
You know, it's interesting, the space that we're in, the disruption, quote unquote, by the 3 members was absolutely necessary. And you can see the fruits of that disruption right here. The fact that we're still talking about those babies that were murdered, those 3 adults that tried to save those babies that were murdered, talking about common sense gun legislation. But what's shocking is how the hardening of the hearts of the leadership in the majority, even now, because we negotiated or tried to negotiate this situation to talk them off the cliff all the way up until the gavel was wielded for the first hearing. But their hearts were hardened. And then what I saw rather, was almost a predatorial instinct that kicked in and a pack mentality of followers. Individuals that could not express a mind of their own to make a decision in fairness when they saw exactly how this kangaroo court was going down this path. And it's a sad state of affairs because you have to remember we are in the most powerful building in the land right here. And what signal are we sending to the citizens of Tennessee? And better yet, what signal are we sending to the young black men or black citizens of our state? That if you have a voice, if you raise your voice in opposition or that's contrary to what other people think, that you can be stamped out. And that's sad and unfortunate and embarrassing for our state. Again, the eyes of the world are on us, and the eyes of the world will continue to be on us because we are making a spectacle of ourselves right here in our state.
House leadership also said that last night to reporters that they denied that race had any factor in yesterday's decision. Said Representative Jones and Pearson were more disruptive than possibly Representative Johnson. Do you have a response to that?
Mason, to you, sure.
If you look at Karen Camper, State Representative District 87, KRENCAMPER, if you look at in totality of all the things that have happened in this session this year, and you can say years prior to, the policies and the treatment appears racist. It comes off that way. And if you think about a Dr. King who was young, if you think about a John Lewis who was young, they were creating chaos in order to change a system. And these young men felt, based on their experience here personally, that it was racism that they were facing. That's what the Republican leadership was saying to them by their actions, by the way they treated them walking down the halls, by the way they spoke to them in the elevators. So who am I to say that their actions weren't racist? It's the individual who felt that way. And not just from leadership, but other members who don't, as the senator said, have the courage to sit down and have a conversation. Look at the recordings yourself of how they've been treated in committees. The speaker never seated Justin Pearson. He was never on a committee. And the day he was sworn in was when the tragedy took place. He wanted to elevate their voices. But he was told he couldn't do it. He was reprimanded for 5 seconds of elevating the voices of the people. So in his mind, maybe, yes, that was racist. Who am I to say it's not? And we all know that in this country, it's been young people that has moved us forward. It's been young people that have shaken things up. It's been the youth that says, we want our voices heard. And then there were those who didn't like the fact that you challenged them, who didn't like the fact that you put them on the record for their policies. So they can say that it's not. But none of us know what's in anybody's heart. But we do know people can feel how they're treated. And that's what these young men felt. And that's what America thinks. And they couldn't get out of their own way, the Republican supermajority, to have compassion as they claim they are. To take the time to say we need to invest in these young men. To take this time to say maybe we failed them for not training, educating, mentoring. There is some ownership on their parts. And so I push back on that because they don't know what these people are feeling. And it's hurtful for us to be even standing here today looking at 2 black men expelled and the white woman still here. America is watching, and I asked them, be on the right side of history. But they decided not to. That is their actions. And they will be held account. My hope is that we can. Now, we've been talking with the governor about some stuff, leadership. We've also feel that there's an open door and still a line of communication with the Republican supermajority in the House, at least the leadership. And the opportunity is before them. We've always been ready. We've always had an open door. We've always had policy. So if they really want to do something, they will find the courage to have the bipartisan support. I'm hopeful that it's still there. We've done it before. We've been here before in this country. We know we'll get through it. So, yes, I think the possibilities are there. Senator, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I do. So I will also add the Senate Democratic Caucus has consistently extended a hand to work together on this, specifically talking to Republican leadership, not only in the Senate but also in the governor's office. So we stand ready. This is not a blue or red, a conservative or liberal problem. This is a Tennessee problem. This is an America problem. And so whatever we have to do we are willing to sit at the table with them and come up with something in this legislative session,
Right.
so that there's not one more mass shooting in this state.
If I may add, with history being prologue, a few years back when we had issues with testing in our schools, these testing systems weren't working, we watched literally as a bill was written on the floor.
Yeah.
They called committees together, wrote the legislation on the floor, adjourned that committee, called the committee up, and passed a bill to hold our schools harmless for that school year on the floor. I watched it. We all saw it. And so if we can do that for school testing, right, why can't we do that for common sense gun laws? On the floor is not necessary now. We still have committees open.
Yeah.
Representative Parkinson referenced the back mentality, and a couple of Republicans did stray from that back, so to speak, and Representative Long voted no on all three. Did that surprise you, or did he give you some sort of heads up?
Let me respond to that. You got it?
I didn't hear what you said.
Ask the question one more time, please.
A couple of Republicans came over, particularly on Representative Jones or Representative Pearson. Did any of that surprise you? Like, I looked at Representative Long, he's voted no all three times. Did he give you sort of heads up?
No, he didn't give us a heads up, but I was surprised that many more didn't come over.
Yeah.
Right, because they saw and witnessed the injustice that was taking place. But here's the thing. Here's what was really disappointing. Many of you remember that we were in the same position before when they shot down the resolution that Leader Love brought for the young lady, the 17-year-old girl that had been shot. Right, and there was a big falling out then also, and session was shut down. But we were able to come together and bring all of the leadership together at the table, right? And get a chance to talk to each other, talk it out, get it worked out, and then get back to business in a better space. But this time they chose to go the opposite direction. And again, I go back to, it's almost biblical how hard their hearts were in not doing what was right and just in this situation. Listen, those rules about props and about approaching the well, that's frivolous because that happens all day, every day. There are members on the floor with guns in their backs. You're not supposed to bring guns to the floor. So we're going to prosecute and indict and charge someone for having a small toy megaphone when we got members that are bringing guns on the floor. And they know that. And so that's what's bothering the world, not just us, but the world is the hypocrisy that's laid right before us in these hearings. And it's sad and unfortunate. And I hope and pray, honestly, I hope and pray that the Republican leadership, I'm not asking them to grovel and make spectacles of themselves. I hope and pray that we can get to the table so that we can fix the things that we need, because the scabs have been pulled off through these hearings. They got their apology, didn't they?
I'll speak to it, and then I'll let Senator. I'll ask Senator Oliver. She has something to say as well. This wasn't about one event. I hope you all heard that. This 113th General Assembly has been full of just bullets shot an hour, and by hour I mean African Americans' direction. Tennessee State. They are trying to, I say, defund, cut the head off of our only publicly funded HBCU. This street right here in front of you. Rep. John Lewis Way had one of their members with full support because they did nothing. They did nothing until that same member wanted to bring back lynching, hanging from a tree. They sat idly by. This isn't a one thing. Dr. King said in his letter from the Birmingham jail, the point of protest, of pushing, of being an antagonist, is to get to the negotiation table. That's the point and the purpose. They refused to do that. And they get mad when the agitation happened. They threw a rock, hit their hands, and now they're coming out with statements saying, I don't know why, if he just would have apologized, it would have been okay. Wrong. Dead wrong.
Charlene Oliver. I represent District 19 in the Senate here in Nashville. CharlaneOliver. I came in with Representative Justin Jones in this 113th General Assembly. Thank you. And we were only two from Nashville that came in as a progressive community organizer background. And this session has been rough for Justin. Let's make that very clear. A lot of political bullying has been going on behind the scenes. This idea that he and Representative Justin Pearson must apologize is a mindset set in white supremacy. A mindset set in that we as black folk are not on par or not peers to them, and we must be inferior and subservient to their demands. Here in the General Assembly, we are equal. We all represent Tennessee. And I can't tell you the many times that Representative Jones has come into my office on something that has happened in the elevator or a conversation with leadership where they called him a worthless human being. That's not leadership. So I am glad that my colleagues forced the conversation that the Tennessee General Republicans weren't willing to have. They are dead set on deflecting from the real issues of common sense gun legislation, and they use this as a political stunt to do that. We spent how many hours yesterday? Maybe 10 hours in the House chambers debating on whether we would expel these three members. We could have spent that same amount of time debating the issues to honor the 6 lives at the Covenant School, but we didn't do that. And so this supermajority is gone unchecked, and I'm calling on the media to help us hold them accountable. There is no accountability in this legislature. They are time and time again attacking our cities. Representative Jones and Representative Pearson just so happen to represent the 2 most diverse cities in Tennessee, Nashville and Memphis. It is not coincidence that we are being attacked by reducing our Metro Council, by attacking our Music City Center, our Airport Authority, our Sports Authority. So we need your help to hold them accountable. Ask the hard questions. Tell the real story in the media what's going on in this building so that people can see and make the judgment call for themselves.
Larry Miller, Larymiller. That question is mostly a distraction, pretty much a waste of time. As I was walking toward the chambers, I noticed the Senate had met earlier, and they were leaving as if they were running out of the building. Anytime legislation is introduced in the House or the Senate, it takes 2 bodies to sign off, then it goes to the governor, and the governor has to sign off. I don't know, but I have not heard, maybe you've heard, the governor of this state, the leader of this state, I don't know if he's made any comments or been engaged. If he hasn't, he should be engaged. He should make a statement. He should get involved. The state Senate should get involved because this has been an embarrassment for the entire Tennessee General Assembly, for the executive branch of this government. I call on the governor. I call on the state Senate to get involved, to reach out, to their Republicans in the House and say, let's do what's right. Let's do something different. So I'm calling on the governor to do that. We have about 3 weeks, if not a month, left in this regular session. If we do not do reform, gun reform in that time, that's short period. That's very short. If we do not, the governor has to step up and say, if it's going to call for a special session, after this regular session is over, let's come back and do what's right. Let's not let this die. Please, to the media, do not let this die. We will continue this fight. We will continue this fight until it's done.
You want to come on? Just respond to the video question because I don't want to.
Yeah, Representative Tory Harris, Memphis, Tennessee, House District 91. So we did have conversation with our county commission, and we have a meeting with them this evening in regards to whether what the next steps would look like as far as appointment, reappointment, what this process looks like for all of us, because we still are learning pieces of that. As it relates to the video, we saw where in the video an individual, obviously somebody as a member of our House party, was party to recording that. And of course, if you go back and watch the actual video that was from up high, you'll notice that it was our 3 members and myself standing to the side right there beside them. And directly in front of me was Representative Justin Lafferty. Representative Justin Lafferty recorded that video. And that's where that portion came from, that 7 minutes that we watched on the floor yesterday. And that was a big piece of the situation that took place, and may have played to some of why Representative Gloria Johnson did not get expelled. It was a video that did not show the whole story. It didn't show all of the parts that led up to what happened on last Thursday. It didn't show what our speaker had done prior to. It didn't show how we were shut down to be silenced on the floor. It missed a lot of parts. But it was a rule violation. And as somebody who has been here for a while, we've got to learn our rules. We'll say that for one. But this individual who did the recording has broken multiple rules before. They have a current rule they've broken amongst our body, and it has to be addressed at some point. This individual has accused us of calling him racist before, and whether we called him racist or not, his behavior has shown racism.
All right. Thank you all for coming today.
Yeah, later, I saw you got the dunks on today. You decided to come out fly, huh?